Hi everyone, at the end of this video we'll have the starting point of our main menu, we'll have our single player menu, we'll have our options menu, and of course our main menu, and we'll be able to quit the game. So let's start. In your root folder, here on the left hand side, just right click and then say new folder, and then type in scenes, and then double click in scenes, and then create another new folder, call it menu. And then go back to your root folder, and we're going to create another new folder call it scripts. And in scripts we're again going to create a new folder called menu. The reason we're just doing this is so that everything will be easier to find when you actually start building a game off of this. So just go back into the root folder, and then on the right hand side underneath scene you'll see there's a big plus. Just click on that, and then you'll see here there is a control node. Just click on that and then create, and then click create. So we're just doing the control node as our root node, because then everything we'll be able to work with everything from there. So on the bottom right hand side of your control node you'll see that it says margin and anchor. So just click on both of them, and then just change right from 0 to 1 and bottom from 0 to 1. All this does is it just makes it full screen. And then in the margin, all you have to do, just change the minus to 0 and to 0. Okay, let's rename our control to main, and then let's save this. So just press Control S, and now we're going to save it in scenes menu, and then save. So then it's saved. So now we're actually going to add everything to it. So firstly, what we're going to do is we're going to click the plus again. And now we're going to add a label. This label will just show what's room we're currently in when we're in the menus. So just type in label, not label, label. Okay, so our label, we're going to name it menu template. Well, we're just going to write menu template in the text, and then under menu template, the line we're going to change to center, and the V line, which is the vertical line, we're also going to change to center. So now just scroll down where you see the anchor and margin again, so just click them again. So our right is going to be 1, and then our bottom isn't going to be 1, because if we do that, what you'll see here is that then it'll be in the very center. So what we want instead is we want it to be closer to about there. So let's make it 0.1, and then just change our bottom margin to 0. Yeah, that looks pretty decent. And now let's rename label just to LBA name, LBL name. Okay, now what you've done after you've renamed it, just click on main again, and then press Control A. So Control A is just a shortcut key for adding a new node. So now we're going to add a button. So just type in button. Okay, so this button we're just going to duplicate. But before we duplicate it, we actually just want to resize it and everything. That will just make it easier after we've duplicated it. So in the bottom right hand side, underneath inspector, scroll down until you see rect. Click on rect, and then find size, then click on size. So your X size is how long it is, it's its width. Let's make that 150. And the Y size is 20. Let's leave that at 20. So just like that. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to duplicate it. So in order to duplicate it, just press Control D, and that duplicates whatever node you have currently selected. So there are 4 buttons. We actually only need 3 buttons. So when you want to delete, if you accidentally create a node that you don't want, just click on it, then press delete, and then press enter or OK. So now let's actually move all of our buttons where we want them to. You'll see the position is still there, just above size. So let's click on position. Let's make our X position 50, and our Y position, let's make it 100. So there's fine. Our button 2, let's do the same. Our X position, let's keep it at 50, because we want it just off from the 0 axis. We want that little bit of margin. And then our Y, let's make that 200. Now our button 3, we're going to make our X position 50 and our Y 300. Okay, so let's save that. Save that. Now let's rename everything and also put in the text for each of the buttons, so that way you know what you're busy selecting. So first, under the inspector node, just scroll up until you see it says text, and then just type in the text. So our button 3 is going to be quit. So just type in quit. Our button 2 is going to be options, and our button 1 is going to be single player. Single player. Okay, now let's actually rename them. So button, just double click on it at the top right hand side underneath scene, and then just type in BTN single player. Our button 2 is going to become BTN options, and lastly our button 3 is going to become BTN quit. Okay, so let's save that. Okay, now we're actually going to create the script so that our buttons will know what to do when we press them. So first what you're going to do is you're going to click on main, and then here at the very top right hand side you'll see there is the scroll with the plus on it. Click on there. So now you're attaching the script to the node. I right clicked. So what you're going to do now, where you see it says path, all that you're going to do is you're going to click on the folder next to it, and then you're going to press the up arrow next to the left of path twice to go back to the root folder. Then you're going to go into scripts, menu, and then you're going to say save and click on create. So now we actually have our script for what all of our buttons are going to do. So now let's quickly create the functions that will affect our buttons first. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete this func process. That's just the process function, but we're not going to use it in the script, so that's why we're going to delete it. So our very first one, what we're going to do is we're going to type in func for function, and then it's going to be single player pass. So when you do a function, you first type in func, then you type in your function name, then you do your bracket, you put in your bracket, then colon, and then as long as your function is empty, you just put in pass afterwards. If you don't, what will happen is it will give you an error, as you can see here, because of the fact that Godot thinks that there should be something, but there isn't anything. So that's why you have your pass. Whereas if you have, say, anything in there that can actually work with it, as long as it's valid, it won't give that issue. So you're just going to put in pass. Now we're going to create an options function, so it's exactly the same. Pass. And lastly, a quit function. Pass. Just like that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to connect our buttons to the script. So there are two different ways you can do this. I'm going to use a method that just works solely in GDScript, because of the fact that I just prefer it and I find it works a bit better for me, but both ways actually work exactly the same, so you can choose whichever one you do. I'll show you the GDScript method first, and then I'll show you the other method that I don't use. So what we're going to do is these two commented out lines of code in ready, we're going to delete them, and then you're going to put $ button single player dot connect, and then you open your bracket, and then you'll see it shows quite a lot of different options. Those options are what you would normally connect with the node manually. So all that you do is you just say your quotation marks, pressed, comma, self. The self means that it's targeting itself and not another object. And now, as you can see, there are the functions we just made. So then you just select single player, and then you close it like that. So what the $ does is the $ tells Godot that it's looking for a node, any node that is a child to whatever node you're working in. So if we had, say, if we had our script on, say, button single player, and we had the options under single player, we wouldn't be able to affect button quit. So I'll just show you visually like this. So if it was like this, and our script was actually connected to single player instead of to our main, what would happen is we'd be able to work with button single player and button options, but not button quit. That's all that means. Okay, so next will be button options dot connect. Again, pressed. It's only going to affect itself, and then we want it to work with options, the function options. And then lastly, button quit dot connect pressed, and then self, and then quit. So if you want to do it manually, what you can do is you click on whatever button or whatever you want to attach to the scene, then you go to node at the bottom right hand side, then you click on whatever you want to connect to it. In this case it would be pressed, then you say connect. Now the important thing would be to connect to a node that has a script. So like we can connect to main, but we won't be able to connect to label node, label name, because it doesn't have a script, as you can see here. And you can see here as well that the button, whatever you're working with, doesn't actually affect itself. It has it in red. It's because it is already, you can automatically call it from itself. Okay. So then you would just say main, you would say connect, and then there you can see it creates its own function, just like what we created there, but you don't have to type that in. The reason why I don't like using this method is because when you create quite a lot of scenes, it duplicates the same scenes. So that means every time when you disconnect the script, you also have to disconnect here manually for every single button. That's the only reason why I don't like it. I just found it quite tedious. Okay, so now that we have that, let's actually set up our quitting. So where you have function quit, your quit function, just press enter and then type in get tree, then your brackets dot quit, and it's just like that. That will let it quit. So now what we're going to do is, in order to get to your 2D viewport, it's F1, or you can click the 2D up top there, or if you want to get to your script viewport, it's F3, or you can click on the script there. And then now what we're going to do is we're actually going to run our game, and we're also going to set up the default scene. So in order to do that, just press F5 or the play button here. Now it's brought up a dialog box saying no scene has been defined. That's perfectly fine, just say select, and then we select our main scene. And now what will happen is every time you run the game, even if you create an executable of it, it will automatically open up this scene as your default scene. Okay, so as you can see, here's our menu template, and quit works. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're actually going to create our single player template quick. So just going to scenes, menu, and now right click on main, duplicate, and then single player. Now double click on single player, but the first thing to do, at the top left and at the top here, you'll see there are your two scenes that you have open. You have main and single player. Click on main, and then let's just close main for now so we don't accidentally work in main whilst we want to work in single player. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is you're going to click on your main where it's your control node, top right hand side here. And then you'll see where we had the scroll with the plus, now it is a scroll with a cross. Now we're just going to click that to detach the script, because we don't want to work with the main scene script instead of the single player script. That's why we're doing that. Now let's double click on main, change it to single player. I did not spell that correct. Single player. So first things first, let's change the label name text from menu template to single player. So click on the label name, and then at the bottom right hand side here where you have node selected, just select inspector, and then let's change the text from menu template to single player, just like that. Okay, so our single player is going to have 3 buttons, just like what we have now. So we don't need to create any new buttons, delete any buttons or anything like that. Okay, but before we do that, if you chose to use the manually connecting of all the nodes, just remember after you've disconnected the script, you have to click on button single player, go to node, click on the text that will be underneath pressed, it will be in green, click on that, and then you just click on disconnect, which will be here, and then you do that for all 3 buttons. Okay, so now what we're going to do after you've done that, button single player, we're going to double click and rename to button new underscore game. Our button options is going to become button underscore load underscore game, and our button quit is going to become button underscore back. And let's just rename the text as well. So here at the bottom right hand side where the text says quit, we want it to say back. Load game, we don't want it to say options, we want it to say load game. And single player, we want it to say new game. So now we're going to save that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to click on single player and we're going to attach our script. Okay, now remember to go into the folder and then click the up arrow twice, go into scripts, go into menu, and then just save it in here. Okay, so now we have our single player script. So now what we're going to do is we're going to first we're going to delete our process function because we don't need it. And now we're actually going to create our 3 functions. So our first function is going to be new underscore game. Remember to put in the brackets because otherwise you'll get an error. Next it's going to be function load game, pass, and then lastly it's going to be function back, pass. It's only one capital. Now we're going to connect our 3 buttons. So delete that under ready. Remember to delete the commented out code. And now what we're going to do is it's just going to be button new game dot connect. So we're going to press it, self, and now as you can see here are our functions again. We want new game for new game. Then for load game it's going to be connect, pressed, self, and now we want load game. And then lastly button back dot connect, we want pressed, self, and back. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're actually going to set up that when you click on your single player in main, it will bring you to this scene, and when you click on back it will take you back to the main menu. So all we need to do is we need to go into the script, and then here where it says back, just press enter. And now what you need to do is you actually need to go get underscore tree. So the get underscore sorry about that. The get underscore tree just means that you're finding your root node, well your tree, which is this is your tree, and there's your basically your main branch. I don't know how to explain it properly. I'll need to look at that. And now you're saying change scene, and now you're telling it to change your scene, so your scene goes to raise. Okay, so just going to say here where you're saying change scene, the change scene is the exact path of whatever scene you want to change to. Easy way to see the path is whilst we have it open here, at the top left hand side here you can actually see the entire scene. So if you want to, you can just copy and paste that, and now to tell it exactly which scene you want, you do another /, and then you would say main.tscn. So as you can see, here's our root folder, which is the res, and then it goes into scenes, and then it goes into menu, and then you say menu.tscn. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're actually going to copy this line of text, and then in your script editor you'll see that main.gd is still there even though you close the scene. That's perfectly fine. Now in your single player function you're going to paste that line of code. Okay, now about the pass. Remember the pass is only there if your function is empty. So options needs the pass, but the single player doesn't need the pass. Only reason why I just keep the pass even though I've got anything in my function is because it's just a visual representation for me to know that's where that function or that if statement ends. Because the pass works for the if statement, any statement that you work with that needs to be closed requires the pass unless it has something in it. So I just do that for a visual representation. Okay, so now in our get tree that we just pasted, remember to change main to single player, and now press F5 to play it. Now when you click on single player, you see we're in the single player scene. click on back, we're back at the menu template, and now click on quit, and you've quit. So now we're going to create one more scene, and that's going to be our option scene. So in our option scene, first we're going to our menu in our scenes folder, and now let's duplicate our main, duplicate, we'll call it options. Okay, so now open up your options. Okay, first go to your 2D viewport, and remember to close single player, so we just don't accidentally work in anything we don't want to. So now what we're going to do is we're going to detach our script, and now we're going to change main to options. Okay, so now we do need 4 buttons. The reason we need 4 buttons is because we're going to have video, audio, control, and back. So just click on quit, press Ctrl D to duplicate it. Let's rename it to button back, and then in our text let's call that back, and then let's move that 100 down in our position. So scroll down until you find position. Our X is going to remain 50, and our Y position is going to become 400, just like that. So let's rename the rest of our buttons. So button quit is going to become button controls, and let's rename the text to controls. Button options is going to become button audio. Let's rename that to audio. Our button single player is going to become button video, and let's rename that to video. Okay, so now here's what we're also going to do. Okay, so we're actually going to keep just one scene for all of our options, and then what we're going to do, so this scene is going to have our video options, our audio options, our controls, and our back. But we're going to actually move all of our buttons to be in line with video, and they're all just going to go like that. So our audio options, our audio button, sorry, our X position is going to be, let's see, so that's 50, and then remember our size is 100. So if it's 200, it'll be right next to video. Let's actually increase that slightly. Let's make it 220, and we'll make our Y 100. So as you can see, it's pretty much right next to it, but there is that small little space in between. So that was our audio. So now our video is going to be, we know our Y is going to be 100. So let's see, that's 220, that's 370, let's make that 390. And then our back, we don't want our back right next to it. Let's have our back over here. So our position, our X position, let's make it 650, and our Y position 100. No, let's make it 750. Yeah, so it's decently enough off. So that's how all of our that's how our options look. Now let's quickly set up its script, and then we'll be done with that for now. So the options, we're going to attach the script. When you click on the folder, you'll see here at the bottom left hand side there is recent. It says menu and menu. So this bottom menu is actually the scenes menu, the one where we've got all of our scenes we've created, and then this top menu is our scripts menu. So there's our 2 scripts. Let's save our options in there, create, now it's saved there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create all of our functions as usual quick. So this function is going to be called video brackets pass. This function is going to be called audio brackets pass. Next is going to be controls, and lastly back. Okay, now we need to connect our 4 buttons. So our first button is going to be, where is it, video dot connect, pressed, self, and then video, like that. Our audio, let's press, self, audio. Next is our controls. Where is controls? There it is. And then lastly, our button back. pressed, self, and then back. So now that we've connected all of them, now what we're going to do is we're just going to get our back function working. So just press enter by function back, paste the same line of text that we have already. Don't need to change anything here because of the fact that it's going straight to our main menu. Going to save that. Then we go into our main.gd, which is our main menu script. We're going to paste the line of text underneath options, and then just remember to change main to options, save it, and let's quickly test it out. So single player, back, options, back, and quit. So now we have the beginning of our main menu. What we're going to be doing in our next video, we're actually going to set up the script so that it can play any music that we do put in. It's got saving, it's got loading, and everything will be ready to make our lives much simpler when we actually put in the video control, the audio control, and changing the controls themselves. Plus, because they'll be saving and loading, it will also make saving and loading in a proper game much easier. Okay, thanks guys.